Steve Mariucci's on the phone right now, my compadre from NFL Game Day Morning. How are you, Mooch?
I'm good. What a weekend we had of football, huh, Rich?
It was unbelievable. What's the biggest shootout you've ever been a part of, Steve? Like that game we saw in Atlanta yesterday.
Okay, as a coach, when I was at Cal, we went 56-55 against Arizona with 4 overtimes, and you can thank me for changing the college overtime rule because we went 4 overtimes at Cal Stadium, and we finally won the game. Fans were on the field. It was awesome, but the officials said, had you not won it there, we were going to cancel the game and postpone it to the next day or the next week because it was getting dark. We had no lights. So because of that, they changed the rule and said, okay, you'll be able to kick in overtime twice, but then you have to go for 2 because we can't have 14 different overtimes in stadiums that have no lights to get into that situation again. It was 56-55.
So you were part of the game that changed college overtime. You have to go over 2.
Yes.
Wow.
Because can you imagine? They say, okay, we can't play anymore. It's too dark. Come back tomorrow. What?
Absolutely. So what about pros? The biggest shootout in the pros that you were part of, like what we saw in Atlanta.
I'm trying to think. I don't remember anything quite like that. I'm drawing a blank right now, Rich. I don't know.
So then let me go on this one. The Sunday night game last night. Did Matt Patricia see when you were a part of the Lions sideline and you threw a challenge flag and you said it was an angry flag or a fired up flag? Did you see him throw that challenge flag last night? It went like 50 yards in Sunday Night Football. Steve, did you see that
in
one?
The air there. You got to be angry. What a win for him, right?
Yeah.
Just a couple of weeks we were talking about weeks ago. Oh, everybody's upset at him in Detroit because he practiced too hard in training camp, and this is not going to be a happy marriage. That win against his mentor, Bill Belichick, was huge for the Lions and Matt Patricia. He was fired up.
Yeah, I know. And you could see the way that the players were all excited for him, too.
Yeah, they look good.
Well,
and you know what? The Patriots didn't look good.
So what do you make of it, Steve?
What I make of it is what we're seeing in the NFL right now is some teams that should be good will have that mulligan kind of game, okay? And some teams that should be bad, like the Bills were ranked 32nd in the power rankings, are good enough to go into Minnesota and just put a beat down on them. It's unbelievable. On any given Sunday, you just never know what to expect. You're going to have good teams flop and bad teams play well, and that's what makes this league so interesting. And the Patriots right now, I'm watching them, because I mentioned this on the air a couple of weeks ago. They're trying to get their 16th season in a row of double-digit wins, right? 16th in a row to tie the 49ers.
Yes,
Thank you very much. And you know what? They might not get it, Rich. They might not get 10 wins or more. We'll see.
I know. I think, though, when Edelman comes back, that's going to be a big difference maker.
And Josh Gordon, yeah.
We'll see if Gordon even I don't know. I'll believe it when I see Gordon on that field and how long he's going to look in that offense. Steve Mariucci here on the Rich Eisen Show. So let's get into the Clay Matthews roughing the passer penalty, Steve. You were on the player advisory board, the player safety advisory board. Now, this is not something that you guys discussed, that the re-emphasis on this now 23-year-old rule did not come from your advisory board?
What comes from our advisory board is we study the injuries, the data, the frequency, and those sort of things of all injuries, concussions, knees, you name it. And what happens is because of the data, when we find out on kickoff returns, the most dangerous play, we make adjustments to that particular play. You saw we created more touchbacks. That makes it less injuries. It's as simple as that. You remember, Rich, look at the big picture. It's all about keeping the players healthier, all right? Roll back time a few years. Remember when Carson Palmer blew his knee out and he was done when he was playing for the Cincinnati Bengals? Remember when Tom Brady blew his knee out in the pocket and he missed the whole season? Well, when those things happen, sometimes you say, all right, we can't have people hitting the quarterbacks in the knees. So we changed the rule, remember?
No, I know, and that led to some crazy roughing the passer penalties where somebody's crawling and hits somebody in a shin, and then a flag comes down, and thankfully we don't see that anymore. So the question is I understand why the rules are put into place, but is it possible, because the NFL likes what we're talking about? Because
No,
they
it's a
doubled
tough
down on it last
situation.
week.
Well, I know they did, but the reason this rule has been changed is because of Aaron Rodgers getting hit by Anthony Barr and driven to the turf, and he's out for the season with a shoulder. So that prompted the discussion. Okay, how do we further protect the quarterback in and out of the pocket? Well, it came to this. I mean, we're the kind of the think tank, all right? We don't make rules. We kind of suggest and we say why this play is dangerous or this kind of hit is dangerous. Then there's a rules committee. Then the owners have to vote. But anyway, so it was like, all right, we're going to try to eliminate two hits on a quarterback. One, the big guy hitting them in the chops, and then the second one, the ground with all that extra weight. And you know what? We're learning because there are unintended consequences. That it's hard to play the game that way. Clay Matthews is actually trying to go by the rules, and he's still getting called 3 weeks in a row, and it's hard to officiate. It's very hard to officiate. So I think there will be more discussion on, all right, how can we better this rule? Our intentions are good, but boy, is it difficult when things happen so fast like this.
Right, because William Hayes now blew out his knee yesterday.
Yeah, I know it's unfortunate.
Legit moving his body weight off of Derek Carr in the process. And now what we're doing is we're making guys think as opposed to being instinctive. And that anybody who tells me, anybody who I've interviewed over the last 15 years with NFL Network and with this show, Steve, as you will be able to attest, having played the game yourself and coached it for as long as you have, anytime that somebody says when you're out there not being instinctive and you're thinking, or maybe you're thinking about an injury or you're thinking about a penalty, that's when things get dangerous. That's when people actually do get hurt.
Yeah, well, they get hurt when there's no rules, too. So I think, here's what's happening with quarterbacks, okay? They're an endangered species we're trying to protect. What we're trying to do is keep their hits off the knees, right? Off the knees and off the shoulder, neck, and head. Those are the areas that when quarterbacks get hurt, they're out. They're gone. The team goes in the tank. And so does the fan base and everything else. And so the midsection, hit them in the midsection. They have a flak jacket on. If you get a bruised rib, that's so be it. But it's the shoulders, neck, and head we're trying to stay off of, and the knees. Now, we have to rethink this thing and talk about it because it's very difficult to officiate and play. Because when you watch that last one with Clay Matthews, and God bless him, he's Aaron Rodgers' best friend. Nobody was more teed off at Anthony Barr than Clay Matthews last year for wrecking his quarterback's health. But he tried to keep his head out of there. He didn't hit him in the neck or the head. He went to the side. He's trying to brace himself a little bit with his legs and his arms. He's doing the best he can, yet his body still comes down on Alex Smith. So it's just a bugger right now. We're going to have to talk about this. It's not going to change. I don't think it's going to change, Rich, during the season. I think player. The other thing is this initiating the contact with the helmet. I think the players are doing a better job with it.
Well, also, too, Steve Mariucci, NFL Network, my compadre from NFL Game Day Morning here on the show. Also, but they started calling it differently. They started removing from their repertoire that we saw throughout the preseason just the mere fact of a defensive player standing in front of an offensive player and both guys bracing for contact. Yeah. Heads actually hit parts of bodies, and here comes the flag. That's been removed. So that's why I'm saying that whatever
after the preseason, because when the new rule happens, the officials call it like crazy in the preseason just for learning purposes for everybody, right? Players, fans, officials.
Right.
And then they kind of went back and said, okay, what's incidental contact? Well, a lot of it is incidental. You don't have to call it every time somebody scrapes helmets and when things happen quickly, So I think that's been cleaned up a little bit. So does this body on all of your weight on a quarterback. That's got to get cleaned up a little bit.
Well, let me talk about protecting young quarterbacks here by not starting them despite you trading up to get him or you definitely using a first-round selection on him. Now, Josh Rosen comes into his first game action yesterday, and what a situation in which to put him. I mean, Baker Mayfield came into a 2-minute situation and got comfortable fast, as we all saw to the kickoff of Week 3 on NFL Network with the Browns. But that was at the end of the first half. Now it's like Steve Wilks pushed the Josh Rosen button with mere minutes to go in a game, and Khalil Mack breathing down the rookie's neck in a clear passing situation. Walk me through a coach's mindset, if you can, Steve.
Hey, not all Steves think alike. I don't know what Steve Wilk was thinking about. Maybe he wanted a spark. Maybe he's just hoping that this is a Baker Mayfield moment. Maybe he had enough with Sam Bradford. I don't know. There's always a big decision, Rich, when to play the young quarterback, all right? In Sam Darnold's case, that's different than, because you got an old guy that's with Josh McCown, and let's get to this, and he's going to be our starter, play him day one. But all the other guys, whether it's Josh Allen, who played a nice game, right? Baker Mayfield played a nice game. Here comes Josh Rosen in a tough situation against a tough defense. And, had he made some first downs or put it in the end zone, the coach looks smart, looks good, like, hey, perfect timing, way to go. If it flops, then you say, well, I got to make another decision. Who do I start next week? But eventually all these guys will start. It's a matter of when. And you got to be a little bit loyal to the Sam Bradfords or the Tyrod Taylors for a little bit, because you brought them in there for a reason with their intention of being a player for you. And then, Rosen's going to be around there for a long time. He didn't need to start day one.
No, and I don't think the way that it went down is going to shake his confidence at all. I mean,
I don't think so. He's a real confident kid. But
to me, it's
going to be interesting. What did he say for next week? What's going to happen next week?
Guess what, Steve? I think he's got to look at the film. He's got to look at the film. Hey, did you ever use it? Hold on, Steve. Let me ask you this question.
Coach speak.
I know.
Like, don't talk about this right now. I got to decide later.
Did you ever, Steve, from a podium, use the "I've got to look at the film" as getting out of saying something from the podium in that moment? Did you ever use it as an excuse when you definitely didn't need to look at the film? Did you ever use that?
Probably, because I probably did, because I had Steve Young with a concussion, and this and that, and was he concussed? Was he not? And so you say that to buy yourself some time to talk it over with your staff. Yes, to look at the film, talk it over with your GM, which way you want to go. Because if you start answering questions in the heat of the moment on a press conference after a big win or a big loss, you might regret it. So it just buys you some time to, hey, I want to sit down and think through this thing, and we can talk tomorrow. Coaches have a press conference every single day. Every day. Used to drive me nuts. But sometimes it's better to push it off to tomorrow. Let me think about this, sleep on it, and I'll meet with my staff after we see the film.
Yeah, it's Mayfield. By the way, Hugh Jackson announced that about half an hour ago. It's Mayfield.
That's
starting.
A shocker, isn't it? It's going to be interesting to see what Steve Wilks does.
I think, the minute that you take Sam Bradford out in a situation like that, talk about a vote of no confidence. You just put the kid in there. They're 0-3. The Seahawks are coming to town. Let's see if they can get a spark from quarters one to last.
You mentioned the spark. That's important, Rich, because sometimes changing it up, putting in your reliever or whatever that is, sometimes it does give you a spark. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it does, but I think that's what Steve Wilks was kind of hoping for. He saw it happen with Baker Mayfield. That was like a miracle. It was unbelievable to watch Baker Mayfield win that game in Cleveland. So that's what you're looking for.
Yeah, by the way, I think you've given this show a spark, Steve, by calling in. I think the show is doing very well before you called in, but I think you gave us a little bit of a spark.
All right.
All
right, Rich.
Before I let you go, Steve, what do you think happens tonight? Fitzmagic v. Steelers, who are in desperate need of a win. What do you think happens Monday night?
Steelers. What's going on over there? I'm anxious to see just what kind of team shows up, because they seem to have a lot of things going on. And then Fitzmagic, he crashed my party, and I let him in thinking he's going to be in the playoffs, right? And so I think NFL fans in general love seeing the underdog succeed at times, like the Browns or like the Tampa Bay Bucks, like Fitz, who's he's got 9 lives, but this one seems to be his best life. And so I'm kind of rooting for the Bucks and Fitz to see if he can pull off another miracle.
Who did you choose? Who did you pick in the picks contest? Who did you take? I'll tell you who I took.
I picked Pittsburgh.
No, we're going against each other. I took the Bucks to go 3-0. I think they win tonight.
They might.
Mooch, you take care.
All right.
Take care.
Rich.
We'll see you soon. You got it. See you Thursday. Steve Mariucci here.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern on Audience.